Good evening. Welcome to this next installment of College Information Week 2026. My name is Jeff Grifa. I'm one of the college counselors here, and tonight I'm going to present to you on how to be an educated consumer through the college search and application process. Choosing a college is one of the biggest financial and academic decisions a student will make, yet too often it's driven by name recognition, rankings, or word of mouth. So being an educated consumer means taking a different approach. It means using reliable, transparent data to understand what colleges actually cost, how students succeed when they're on campus, and what outcomes graduates achieve after they graduate. In this presentation, I'll break down what it means to be an educated consumer of higher education. We'll explore trusted public data tools provided by the U.S. Department of Education, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the College Board, and I'll show how they can help you compare and contrast colleges across affordability, academic success, student experience, and career outcomes. The goal is simple. It's to empower students and families to make informed, evidence-based college decisions focused on fit, value, and long-term success. To help with this presentation, I created this not an exhaustive list of resources, but an introduction to resources that you might find extremely helpful through this process. Much of this is going to be beneficial for students, and there is also a lot of it that's going to be beneficial for parents as well. So this sheet of resources I'm going to make available to you either in the comments section, or you can find it on the McQuaid counseling portion of our McQuaid website. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to begin by using the College Navigator. The College Navigator is, simply put, a tool that students can use to help them explore and compare colleges across the United States. So instead of guessing which schools might be a good fit, this website gives you reliable, official data to help you make those informed decisions about your education. So the College Navigator allows students to search for colleges and universities using many different criteria. You can look up schools by location, state or city. You can look at them from type of school, public, private, or even for-profit colleges. You can even take a look at the size of the student population, the programs or majors offered, and the tuition costs and financial aid information. All those are filtering criteria that when you input this, you can get a list of colleges that match them. So what makes this College Navigator especially useful is that the information comes from the government collected data. So it's trustworthy and standardized across schools. All right. When you click on a specific college, and I'll show you all this through demonstration, the College Navigator provides a detailed profile. And some of the most important things you find will include like the tuition and fees. It'll give you both in-state and out-of-state costs. It'll give you graduation and retention rates, which I'll explain later. And that shows how many students stay and finish while they're at that particular college. It'll provide admissions information, including acceptance rate and test score ranges. Gives you financial aid statistics such as average financial aid packages and student loan data. And you can even get campus demographics, including enrollment size and student diversity. This helps students compare schools side by side and understand not just the price of a school, but also how successful students are there. So it's especially helpful because it encourages students to look beyond just a school's name or reputation. For example, two colleges might offer the same major, but one might cost much less or have a higher graduation rate. And using this tool, it will help students avoid taking on unnecessary student debt. It can help you find schools that match your academic interests and personal needs, and discover colleges that they might not have ever heard of before, which is important. It's important to diversify as a graduating class, and then you don't end up competing against each other the entire time. It's also used for parents and us counselors and even some teachers who want accurate information when advising students. So it's a free resource, and it helps students to make smarter college choices. And I will say the more information that what I've seen through my many years of doing this, the students who really do this research, who collect information, are going to make their decisions with confidence. They're not rolling the dice. Okay, and that's what we hope for, is that students know that every college on their list, whether it's going to be Reach College, a school where they're competitive in terms of matching the academic profile of the students there, or if they're above the academic profile of students there, every one of those schools should be a good fit for that particular student. So let me show how this actually works. All right. I'm just going to click right here because I can do a quick search just using these, these few criteria, but I'm going to expand that by clicking more search options. So you can do it a couple different ways. If you already know a school, you can just click in that college name, or you can go and click on the particular states. I like to use the map. It's a nice visual. So all you have to do is click on the states. I'm going to do New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and why not Massachusetts? That's just totally random, okay? Once that's done, I can move on. So this is not the only way to do this by using the map or choosing a state. You can also pick a zip code. So you can pick your home zip code. If you have family out in North Dakota, you can plug in their zip code, and then you can look for how many miles away from that zip code do you want to investigate colleges. So that's another way of doing it. Then you can look at programs. So I'm just going to keep this pretty simple. Most of our guys are looking at some kind of business. So I'm just going to put business administration and management general. So I'm going to add that. And as you can see, there's a lot of options here. And this is based on how colleges report the names of their majors to the government. And so that's why it's listed, has many different majors and programs listed there. I'm just going to keep it simple and stick with business administration and management general. Then from there, like if I picked multiple majors, I can look for schools that offer these selections as distance education, or I can find schools that offer all of these selections. So if I'm looking at business and psychology and I don't know, physical education, I can click only find schools that offer all of those. That's useful because, if I really like everything else about that college and I start with a particular major and I don't like it, I can switch majors without having to move campuses, which might be really helpful depending on that student. All right. So we're going to go with business administration. And then I'm going to look for a bachelor's degree, and that is our typical 4-year college degree, undergraduate degree. When I'm in class with students in our college planning seminars, I'll explain what all of these different things mean. In particular, like I like talking about how far from home you want to be because, that's an important factor. If you want to talk about looking behind or looking further into a selection, this is where students can think about, like, how often do I want to be home? How accessible do I want home to be? Do I care that I need to get home or that I want to get home for like a birthday party in the middle of the week and then I can get back the next day without missing classes? Or is it just something that I'm going to sacrifice? So those decisions are based on that student's value. So if I highly value family, then maybe I want to find a college where I can actually have access to my family on a regular basis. And this is no judgment, but if it's not as an important criteria for me, then maybe I'm looking for colleges that are further away. In addition to that, it's going to cost more to get back and forth from college and home, especially if you're across the country. And it'll also affect how many items you can bring to campus. Of course, now many colleges will offer storage, or some families will even send things to that post office ahead of their arrival. So there's ways around that, but there's always going to be some kind of cost associated with it. So it's important to think about. Then we have institution type. The public colleges are those where they are going to have a lower tuition, and tuition just refers to the cost of the education to sit in the class. So a public institution like SUNY schools, it's quite inexpensive for a New York State resident to enroll at a SUNY school. But if I'm coming from out of state, then my tuition might be tripled. And that happens in other states as well. So that's something that we want our students to look into, public versus private. That's, probably the most important piece there. I am also going to look at private nonprofit. These private for-profit colleges are typically not the schools that that our high school graduates are looking for. You're looking at things like maybe a University of Phoenix, I think is what it's called. You see commercials about them all the time. All right, or things like that. At any rate, I'm not going to focus on that area. And also, in terms of the institution type, I'm going to click 4-year college. Okay, a 2-year college would be like a Manor College down near Philadelphia, or a 2-year college like a community college here in New York. All right. And then when we get to the expanded search options, you can even look at, what is the maximum tuition that I want to pay at an institution, all right, within the state I live in, or I can, click on another state. This might sound kind of strange right now, but I wouldn't let, cost of attendance or tuition and fees be the driving force of my college search at this point. It's an important thing to investigate, which we'll talk about, but it shouldn't be the driving force right now because you don't have any idea right now what the financial aid and scholarships and grants is going to look like in your case. I'm interested in on-campus housing, and campus setting is important too. We live in Rochester. It's like a small city. A lot of our students come from the local suburbs, so they get to think about what their life is like. Do they want an experience that's going to be different than that, or do they want something that's going to be the same? You can only go by what you know and by what you want as a student. That's why self-reflection is going to be important in this process. What do you want? What's important to you? What don't you want? All of those things are valid questions. Okay, so I'm just going to choose city and suburban for now. Obviously, you see that you can choose several. Percent of applicants admitted. This is basically referred to as selectivity. So the lower percent admitted of students is going to be a harder college to get into. But just keep in mind, more than 70% of the colleges in this country accept more than 70% of their applicants. So, and again, the selectivity just means it might be harder to get into. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a better education for me personally. All right. That's why we spend so much time talking about all these other factors and not just, is that a good school? Because in my opinion, good is selective. What's good for me may not be good for you. So that's really important to think about. So I am honestly going to leave this blank right now. Okay. As a junior, I don't have my SAT scores. I don't have my 6-semester GPA, which means I haven't finished my junior year, so I don't know exactly what I'm bringing to the table as a student. I might have an idea, but that is definitely not set in stone. Okay. Then we look down to your SAT scores, and this talks about the 25th percentile. What we talk about basically when we look at the minimum and maximum, so I'm just going to set this at like 500 to let's go, let me set that a little bit lower. Let's go 480 to 600. And then for the math, I'm going to go 520 to 620, just for the heck of it. Totally random. And what this means is, well, if we click on this, the search returns schools with 25th percentile scores within the selected minimum and maximum. Okay, so the 25th percentiles is the score which 75% of the students scored above, or 25% of the students scored below. We simply call that the mid 50%. That's the easiest way to think about it. Okay, so within that mid 50%, between a 480 and 600, and in math 520 to 620, a student can fall anywhere within that range. If I'm lower, maybe towards like maybe I have a 490 or a 500, yeah, I'm competitive, but not as competitive as if I was around a 600 or a 590. Okay, same thing goes here. All right, so there's a range of being competitive, and that's just one factor. That's just your SAT scores. It doesn't account for your GPA, your strength of schedule, your recommendations, your extracurriculars, and all the other items that are introduced in your application. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that as is, and then we'll go to varsity athletic teams. And this is like, if I'm counseling a student with this right now, honestly, I wouldn't have even had them do anything here on the SAT scores. I also would tell them to leave this stuff blank down here. My experience is that when you start, making selections for sports, things like distance learning, night classes, etc., religious affiliation, or a specialized mission, okay, as you can see what they are right here. then it narrows down the search so much that you don't get any hits. Okay, so there's ways to expand that search, and I think it's a good idea to expand that search because then you have more options from which to choose. All right, and you might be able to get introduced to a college you might have never heard of before. That can be exciting, and I think that's a good thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. All right, so I have a pretty expansive list here. It looks like I have 60 results, not too bad. And if I want to, I can start to pin some schools, make them my favorite. So I'm just going to do that right now, just randomly. I've got Adelphi. Let's go with Chatham University. Um, and I'll go with Elmira since they're somewhat local. Let's go to the next page and see what we have here. Okay, so, oh, John Carroll. Let's click on John Carroll, and I'll show you what the profile looks like, okay? Essentially, what I'm looking at here is just a snapshot of John Carroll. Just gives like you can see right here, just general information, all right? I can start there. Then you can see all of these different areas right here. I'm just going to expand them all and just briefly talk about it. I think I'm going to expand them all. Well, let's do one at a time then. Okay, so general info, you've got all of your links here, extremely helpful. It gives you the special, like I said, if you, like I didn't need to click on this because right now I get to see all of those things that were mentioned in that in this area down here under specialized mission, religious affiliation, and extended learning opportunities. All this information is right here, okay? And you can see that they are Roman Catholic. In this case, we know they're a Jesuit university. We get to see the faculty and graduate assistants, full-time faculty, part-time faculty. Here's an important one. We have your tuition and fees. And you can look at the trends each year. As you know, college costs go up every single year. And this is going to give you like the percent of like rate change in tuition each year. All right. The books and supplies, this is something that's going to vary. It's going to depend. These are just averages, okay? That will vary depending upon your major. If I'm an art major, I'm going to have more books and supplies than as required than maybe to be like a psychology major, all right? Just as a random example. So, and then I get to see how much it costs for the food and housing, other expenses, all right? So all important information. You can also mess with this multi-year tuition calculator to see, how things will change during your time or your time that you plan to be at that particular college. Okay. And you can see that they offer, different types of tuition plans. Then we get down to financial aid. All right, so this is going to show like the number number of students awarded aid, the percent awarded aid, 100%. And then we can get into grants and scholarships versus student loans. You can see the difference in numbers there. So this might be something you're interested in. How generous is this particular college? Here's the average, average amount of aid that's awarded for a particular student. Okay. And then you get to see the breakdown and costs and aid for graduates and whatnot. Graduate students, that is. And here's your net price. And the net price is essentially, the cost that the price that students and families pay after receiving their financial aid package. Okay. And this is based on like your average net price income. All right, so again, these are averages. Everybody's going to bring a unique situation to the table, so your number will be different, most likely. Okay. However, if you want to know what yours would look like at John Carroll University, you can click on that net price calculator link, and it will take you right to John Carroll's particular net price calculator. All right, so they're giving us the full cost of attendance here, which is $75,000 and $75,185. All right, and then you can put in information here. Once you fill it out, you're going to put in your scores, family information, parent finances, student finances, and then you can get an estimated financial aid package. So this is really important. I said don't let the cost be a driving force, but now you have an idea, if you're interested in John Carroll, what it might look like for me as a student in terms of like a financial burden. So again, this is all information that's going to help you make this decision. You can look at enrollment, and these are nice, these charts. This is another area where some college search navigators will allow you to put in like the demographic breakdown of students. I'm looking for this percentage of male versus female. I'm looking for this percentage of in-state versus out-of-state. Again, if you put that into a search engine, you're not going to get many hits. And the information is readily available for you right here. So in my opinion, there's no reason to use that as a search criteria. Take a look at the really important criteria and then come and take a look at this, okay? All right, so you can just quickly see how this is broken down. Okay, your admissions piece here. And this is showing just the straight up numbers, number of applicants, and it breaks it down male, female, the percent admitted, 81%, 78% male, 85% female, percent admitted who enrolled, okay? So this is showing us that out of the 81% who were admitted, 16% enrolled. And that percent admitted who enrolled, that's called your yield. So that yield basically drives how many students a college needs to admit in order to hit that enrollment number. That drives everything for a college in terms of admissions. Okay, that yield number, because of years of doing and studying the numbers, colleges know that I need to accept this number of students if I'm going to hit that number. Hit that 16% enrolled rate. Okay. All right, and then you can get the information about what's required in terms of the admissions, because not only are students looking at colleges, colleges are looking to build their class, build and shape a community. And so these are the things that they are going to consider. Obviously you have your GPA and some will look at rank, your secondary school record, that is essentially your rigor, how difficult are the classes that you're taking compared to what's offered by the high school. Okay, and are you in a college preparatory program? Obviously recommendations are going to be important. The formal demonstration of competencies. Typically you're looking at like a standardized test, perhaps, or other areas of competencies. You can see the rest of them there: legacy, work experience, and your essay is going to be an important piece of that application. And then they're given information about SAT, ACT, and other tests that might be considered. And you can see it's not required. So John Carroll is a test optional school, right? Then you can see the number of students who admitted or submitted their scores, only 15%. So if you looked, when you look at these mid 50% that we talked about earlier, so you're looking at 600 to 670 for the mid 50% on the verbal, and a 590 to 680 on the math. All right, so that shows you that students that submitted scores had 50% of them had scores in between 60 and 670, 600 and 670, and 590 and 680. All right, so students can get an indication of where they might fall within that range. And that's also important to take a look at, decide, maybe I do, maybe I don't want to submit my scores to John Carroll. And there's also going to be little nuances there. I've heard colleges say, hey, I know you could get admitted here with a 1280, but if you don't have scores that's like a 1450, then don't submit them. And you might question, well, why is that if I could get in with my 1280? Well, if you do submit your SAT score at 1280, that might, at some colleges, that might affect the merit scholarship which you could get. The merit scholarship is essentially the scholarship that a college offers based on your academics, typically your academics and extracurriculars, etc. Okay. You can look at retention rates. Okay, so retention rates is, so essentially what this means is the percentage of first-time students who are seeking bachelor's degrees who return to the institution to consider their studies the following fall. This is a really important number. 85 is a pretty decent retention rate. That means that John Carroll is doing something good. The students are engaged, and John Carroll is engaging them. Okay, so students are typically satisfied there. A low retention rate might mean that the college is maybe lacking funds, maybe lacking programming, lacking in some area where the college or the students are feeling dissatisfied and want to go elsewhere. All right. So pay attention to those retention rates. And if you're on a campus visit or talking to an admissions professional, there's no harm in asking them, like, why is the retention rate what it is? And hopefully they'll give you an in-depth answer for that. Okay. And here's your graduation rates. Okay. The overall graduation rate is also known as the student right to know, or IPEDS graduation rate. Right? It tracks progress of students who began their studies as full-time, first-time degree or certificate seeking students. That's important. Full-time, first-time degree seeking students to see if they complete a degree or other awards, such as a certificate, within 150% of normal time for completing the program in which they enrolled. So most of the time, you're going to see this graduation rate listed as like a 6-year graduation rate. Okay, so this doesn't offer it, but some search engines will allow you to choose 6-year versus 4-year, and you can see that number change in some cases significantly. Okay. Here we go. 6-year graduation rate by gender, 6-year graduation rate by race, ethnicity. Okay. And you have outcome measures. So this is essentially, your full-time, first-time degree / certificate seeking undergraduates who entered in 2015 and 16 in this case. Okay. And then if they received a bachelor's degree, so you're looking at, highest is going to be your non-Pell students. So maybe some students who have their families have a higher income rate. And so they're at 2% higher graduation rate than all students, and more than those who are receiving Pels. So this is important. You might see where, as a student, where you fit in this area. Okay. And it's going to list my majors. All right, so you can see your bachelor's numbers here. What are your most popular majors? What are your least populated? Most popular, least populated does not necessarily mean better or worse. It just means more students want to be a business major than an English major, right? And then you can see there's other, things that might not be important for our students here in terms of, veterans and service members rates. You can see your athletic teams here. Okay, Division III. You can look at accreditation. It's important. And this one is important too, campus safety and security. And I know most parents are concerned with that. There's a lot of action taking place on college campuses recently. So I think if what you see, portrayed in the news, it's important to look behind that and take a look at what the college and the government is actually reporting. Okay. And this only gets updated every couple of years, as you can see, because our latest data here is from 2021. College admissions officers are happy to talk. They're asked about campus safety all the time. If you go on a campus visit, you'll notice that they're always talking about blue lights and campus safety, public safety, depending on what they're called, where you're at, and so how to access help and resources if need be. All right. And then you look at your cohort default rates, okay, in terms of your loans. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the top of the page. And remember, I pinned those 3 colleges. I'm going to go here and I've checked all of them. And now I'm going to hit compare. And this will take me to this page, obviously. And I'm going to hopefully see that expand all works now. And so now I can see I've got Adelphi, Chatham, and Elmira College side by side. Okay. So this is fun. This is a nice way just to get a visual. You can add more favorites to your list, and you can export this list if you want. You can print it and save it. It's wonderful. Okay. And again, it's one way to stay organized and without having to create your own Excel sheet or own spreadsheet to take a look at this. But you can see the difference here. Delphi, Chatham, and Elmira, the differences in tuition, okay, on campus versus off campus. Off campus in many cases going to be less expensive unless you buy a meal plan. Obviously you're not going to have to pay for your dormitory here, so it's going to be a cost saver. You can take a look at the differences in financial aid. Okay. I just wanted to show you. I'm not going to go over all the details here because there's just too many. And this would be something that, I would expect students and families to do when you're getting down to, really comparing those colleges, especially as you get later in the game. As you shrink your list, you saw I had 60 results that came as a result of the criteria that I inputted here. But as I continue to research these colleges and say, you know what, maybe not this one's better, that list will get whittled down, to maybe 6 or 7 colleges that you decide to apply to, and putting them side by side like this can be extremely helpful. Okay, now I want to take you to the College Affordability and Transparency Center. So I'll go back to my list of resources, click on that, and here we are. So this is a U.S. Department of Education tool focused on costs and financial value. Why would you use it? Really to understand what colleges really cost after aid, so that net price. And again, you can compare tuition fees and living expenses, and you can also look up in net price by income group, like we just did with the College Navigator. And lo and behold, there is the College Navigator. So you can link to that, obviously, from this College Affordability and Transparency Center website, which is collegecost.ed.gov. Okay, so what should you check? Sticker price versus net price. I've heard colleges say, we really don't like that term sticker price. Really, what they're saying is that's just people think about that like they do when they go to buy a car. And obviously, this is a much bigger decision and investment to make than a car, perhaps. But not everybody's going to pay that full cost of attendance. So you're going to get some kind of financial aid package, and that is going to be what your net price is. All right. And you can look at, like we did before, the typical cost for your income level, and you can take a look at the availability of institutional grants. But the best thing to do, honestly, is to use that net price calculator that I showed you briefly, and it'll come up again as well as I show you this part. Some of the tiles here aren't going to be as beneficial. For example, the 90-10 information, and basically this is a list of for-profit or proprietary post-secondary institutions that receive more than 90% of their revenues from Title IV federal student aid. Nobody and that I can think of in my 23 years of doing this has applied to the colleges that you would see on this list. And then when you get to the state spending charts, again, this is a summary of information on changes in state appropriations for post-secondary education. Again, it's not going to be something that students are particularly interested in looking at. When you get to the college financing plan tile, this is a tool that participating institutions use to notify students about grants, loans, and other aid that they can use to pay for their program. Some of the page is not working, and I'm not sure why that is. But essentially, you can go down and click on, you can find a loan simulator, tax forms, different links to your FAFSA and other. We're going to look at the college scorecard a little bit later. But you can click on these and just learn about different grants and different work study programs, and if you can see right here. Just a lot of links to different information that you may find useful. Okay. This is the Net Price Calculator Center, which I really like. It's almost like a single point of agencies, if you will, where you can type in a college name. The College Affordability and Transparency list. This one's fun. Essentially, what you can do here is take a look. It will highlight institutions with high and low tuition and fees, as well as high and low net prices, which is the price of attendance minus grant and scholarship aid. It also shows institutions where tuition and fees and net prices are increasing at the highest rate. So if we enter here, We can take a look at, let's go 4-year private, private, not for profit. This is what I wanted. And we'll just go highest tuition and we'll generate that report. So here we go. So this is looking at your highest tuition. The national average right here is 31,000. Okay, you can just get a quick list of that. Let's go lowest tuition. Here we go. Some unfamiliar names there and some familiar names. We take a look at highest net prices. Again, so this is after aid. Okay, and you can see what percentage of students receive aid. Okay, and we go to lowest net prices. There we go. We've had some students apply to Kettering. And then you could also take a look, let me X out of here and go back in and find a program. How much do career and vocational programs cost, like automotive? Valid program. Okay. Doesn't like it today. But at any rate, sorry about that. Basically, what you're looking at is, if you want to go into, a trade or something like that, that will show you the different types of programs. Okay. And again, you can see how fast college costs are going up. If you want to generate this report, just keep it general. And you can go by state. Okay. So like I said, some of this information is going to be more applicable to like parents than students. I don't know that any students are going to be going in and poking around at that affordability and transparency list, but I have been surprised in the past. Okay. And then we get to the scorecard. And with the scorecard, let me go into it. And this is a fun one. So it's going to give you things like acceptance rate, retention rate, graduation rate, the net price, median earnings, and the loan default and debt levels. All right. Why is this important? Basically, these figures reflect both student selectivity and student success, which are important for like comparing your colleges. So if we enter the scorecard, we can enter a college name. Oh, look at Hobart's right there. Let's click on Hobart, hit search. Okay, so here we go. Hobart and William Smith colleges. Here's your graduation rate, 75%. The midpoint for 4-year colleges is 58, so they're doing better. So it gives you that comparison. It also gives you the comparison for the annual cost, okay? And the midpoint here is going to be 19, so they're going to be above with 31,057. Your median earnings, I think this might be 10 years out. Yeah, so median yearly incomes of former students who received federal aid 10 years after entering college, okay? So, if you're looking at 4 years, so this might be, if they graduated in 4 years, so like 6 years out, what's their median earning? So again, with Hobart, it's higher than the midpoint. All right, so this will help with like a return on investment. A lot of students are thinking about that, but your major will also kind of, will affect that as well. All right, so we can go here. Let's look at economics. You can see gives you the number of graduates, and then you open it up, and it gives you this. This is a fun one. I could see a lot of students taking a look at this. Going to their college, looking at the different majors that they're interested in, and trying to figure out, oh, this is what am I going to be making here once I get done and get a job. It's fun to look at. What's also fun to look at, and I do this with our students in college planning seminars, like we take a look at this. All right, so if you're making $84,000 a year, and you need to pay off loans, and your monthly payments are $286, and you're paying that off in 5 years or 10 years, you're going to be paying more on that interest and then your on your principal balance. So that's always like, using that visual. There's a loan calculator that I've done with a lot of students, and it'll show them, well, if you want to live comfortably, on your own, then you have to be thinking about making this much money, especially if you want to make more than your minimum monthly payment on your loan, which is highly recommended. Okay. So this leads to a deeper conversation. As I said, we got to look behind the numbers to really get an understanding of what this academic investment is going to mean for a student and their family. Okay. This will show like, here, let's take a look. More meeting earnings and debt incurred. Okay. Before I get too much in the weeds, again, a really interesting website for y'all to take a look at. All right, I'm going to go back to my list of resources here, and we will move on to the Occupational Outlook Handbook. As you can see, it provides information on what workers do, the work environment, education, training, and other qualifications, pay, the job outlook, information on state and area data, similar occupations, and sources of additional information for more than 300 occupational profiles covering about 4 out of 5 jobs in the economy. So let's go to that. We used to use this all the time when I first started at McQuaid. We used to do, well, back then our college planning seminars were called group guidance. And so one of the activities we used to do was to run through the college search. This was fun. Oh no, sorry. So we would run through the career interest inventory, and we would also do like a personality test. Essentially, tests that will introduce students to careers that they might enjoy and or be successful in, or that have like people with their personalities work in these fields. So we would do that, and then students would start to learn about the different careers, which they could learn about here in the Occupational Outlook Handbook. But then from there, they would learn about, oh, I need this kind of education. I need like a 4-year degree, and these are the majors that I could take on to get into these careers. So in a sense, we started with, looking at yourself, understanding who you are as a person, what your strengths are, how does that apply to a particular job that you might be interested in, and then you back it up from there to take a look at what kind of education you would need to get to that job. And so we still kind of do that, but it's not as explicit as it was once in the past. Because asking any high schooler and some college students, for that matter, what they want to do with the rest of their lives is a really daunting and almost impossible question to answer. I myself thought that I was going to be an elementary school teacher. Nope. Once I started taking those classes, I did not enjoy it at all. But I knew that I liked working with young people. I knew that I wanted to be in a school in some capacity. And so here I am as a school counselor, which has been fun for me. So at any rate, the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Essentially, you can just type in any type of occupation here. Let's just go accountant. That's the first one that pops into mind. And then you click on the link, and then you can see there it provides you with a summary, gives you information about what they do, what's the work environment like, how to become one. Breaks down the pay. I think you can also, there used to be a map here that you could take a look at. It'd show you the different wages depending on where you lived in the country, what the job outlook is going to look like. So employment of accountants and auditors is projected to grow 5% from 2024 to 2035. I was going to say, that's pretty big. I rarely see that large growth rate on different careers in here. Here's the state and area data that I was talking about. All right. I'm not going to click on those, but obviously you can. And then if you want to expand your search, here are some other occupations that are similar in some way. And most of these are going to be like more of your, like if you were to think about like your John Holland Code, investigative, conventional careers. These would probably fit in those two personality types. Okay. Um, and then if you're interested, obviously you click on it, you can get the same setup as you would for other occupations. Okay, now going back to our resource list, I'm going to take a look at the College Board Big Future. This is a fun site. Students are very familiar with the College Board website. It is the website that you used to register for the PSATs. It is the website that, or to view your scores for the PSAT. It's the website that you will use to register for your SATs. We use it for APs. It's a great website. If you're going to log in and do this, this is great because then you can do a college search, and then save all of your results to come back and take a look at later. All right, and the benefit to that is obviously you got them all right there, and then you don't have to worry about losing information or getting a printout that's going to be static. You can change this list as you want. Okay. Um, I also like the layout of it. We've been using Naviance for a long time, and I always default to the Big Future College Search just because I think it's easier to use. I like the graphics of it. It's just easier, more easier to navigate. Okay, so just like that College Navigator, this is the same kind of site. All right, so you see the same kind of your majors, your location, the type of college. I've got right now 4,306. That's way too many to start investigating. So similar to what I would have done that I did on the College Navigator, I could just come here, um, find my find my major, um, show colleges. Now I'm down to 1655. Location, states and territories. Let's just go Arizona because I'm just going to do this real fast. Show colleges down to 22. All right, so then you get type. I want 4 year, show colleges down to 9. So I narrowed that down real fast, probably just because I did, the one state there. So at any rate, students will look at this. You click on the college name, continue without signing in, and I get a profile. Okay. And a lot of the profiles are going to have the same kind of information, but as you notice, the College Navigator was way more in depth. Okay, so this is more of a surface level. This is, like I said, this is what a lot of our students are going to use to begin their college search. Obviously, we want them to dig deeper, to look behind these numbers and visit the campuses and talk to admissions counselors, investigate their website. So there's going to be different tiers of different tiers of research that students will do. This is like your tier one. Tier two would be looking at a website. Tier three would be actually visiting the campus, talking to your admissions counselors. Okay. But again, you get your overview. Here's again that SAT mid 50% range, graduation rate 66%. Here we go. Gives you GPA breakdown, SAT range. Okay, you can see that their enrolled number 86%, so that's a little bit higher than John Carroll. But here's two colleges I showed you that are well above 70% that also offer a good education for many people. Okay, and like I said, good is subjective. That's why I didn't say all people. I said many people. Okay, it gives you the requirements. So again, same kind of information that you can see there. Lists my majors. AP credit policies. So this is really helpful. I talk to a lot of students about, hey, you can take your APs, that will increase your strength of schedule. And if you do well in those, obviously going to make you a more competitive applicant. But, when it comes down to taking that test, can my score be used for anything? And this will tell you, if I'm taking my AP bio and I get a minimum score of 3, then it's going to count for this elective credit. All right. If I get a score of 4, then man, I can get 8 credits for that in these particular courses. Okay, so these are course codes, and these will help you realize or figure out. Okay, if I get a 4 on AP Bio, it's going to cover one of these. So I don't have to take this course. Maybe it's a prerequisite for a course I want to take, which can move me ahead, in my curriculum there, ahead of my years. Okay. All right, and this is the list of the majors that I mentioned previously. Okay, so let's list everything I think this is ASU that we're looking at. Yeah, sorry, University of Arizona. So this is, lists everything that they offer as a major. It's an exhaustive list. Okay. But again, this is reporting something. My suggestion to many students would be to go look at that college website, to look at the accurate, most up-to-date information. Okay. And here's your special academic programs, which I said I wouldn't input on your search criteria, but instead take a look here. And then other colleges that, like usually this information comes up because, hey, if you're applying to ASU, here are some similar colleges, similar colleges in the sense that, they're in the Southwest. It might be because of the size, it might be because of their location. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good fit, but they might be. They're just introducing a student to more options to consider. Okay. And finally, I want to show you the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. This is their ranking on return on investment of 4,500 colleges and universities in the U.S. All right. So let me click on this. I'm not going to spend too much time. This one is really easy to get in the weeds with. One of the things I will suggest is, like, I decided to just jump right in this and started to take a look at it without reading what these terms mean, because when you get down to the graph here, it's like, I'm not really sure what this means. But at any rate, take a look at this. This is going to help students decide, again, like the scorecard did, when you're taking a look at, if I'm going to this college and I'm going to be in this major, what can I expect? What are students, not what can I specifically expect, but what are students earning income wise, after they spend or invest in their own education? Are they going to be in the red or are they going to be in the black? Okay. So I also suggest using this piece as well. I think you'll find it very helpful. For the most part, though, most of the work that our students are going to be doing is going to be on sites like the College Navigator, Big Future, and I hope the College Affordability and Transparency Center, which includes that college scorecard. Because I really think there's some great information in here that help students understand what is that investment that they're going to be looking at. And that's pretty much all I got for you. So I hope that this presentation wasn't too fast and I didn't want to get too detailed on things. I think getting into those details is for each student and family. I simply wanted to introduce you to the tools available and show you briefly how they can work. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this installment of College Information Week.